So we now have the 13th episode of Fear the Walking Dead Season 6. This episode is called JD, and if you have not seen this episode yet, as well as Season 6 of Fear the Walking Dead as a whole, do not watch this review because this review is going to contain full spoilers for not only this episode, but the entire season. You've been warned. With this episode, I was quite disappointed that I got spoiled for me that John's dad was actually going to be making an appearance in it. Like, the minute I saw the shootout happening, I knew immediately that, okay, this is how John's dad's going to get introduced. I was kind of hoping that it wasn't. I thought maybe it was one of the end of the beginning group, but then I kind of quickly realized that it was John's dad. I would have preferred if I didn't know that, and then the big reveal within this episode would have been a big reveal, but it got spoiled for me online. But anyways, the episode starts off, we see June going up to the community where Morgan and the group is at, and every single time we see this community, it's just been developed more and more, and I'm really excited seeing how this community is going to grow and what's it going to look like. I hope we actually last there past season 6, but I honestly have no idea if we're actually going to stay there, just by judging by the end as the beginning group. Are they going to succeed and blow up the place, or what's going to happen? I don't know. I'm very interested to see what is going to happen with that community. But we see that Morgan and Grace blame June. Well, mostly Morgan blamed June for the loss of the baby. They thought if June was there, they wouldn't have had to travel and the baby would have been fine. And June, in a way, blames herself. She's trying to kind of saying, like, it's not my fault. I think even if I was there would have been nothing I could do. So there is a lot there. You can see them blaming. You can see not so much of a hatred, but more of a just kind of leave me alone to try to get through this at the moment. So June does go off, and what she's going off to do is to try and get a lead on the ends of the beginning group. Even though they've got the hospital, she said Sarah is well able and well capable of keeping that. She's just out there trying to get some bit of answers for this end of the beginning group, just to try and kind of give something, because of course that's how Grace's baby died. She's trying to get some answers out on that. Then Dwight comes out. We see a bit of Dwight. Wasn't really expecting to see Dwight. Since Sherry came into the picture, I think Dwight has just been not really destroyed as a character, but he's just gotten so boring. His character feels like he's only there to just for Sherry. He doesn't feel like he's got any purpose. I'm not really a lover of Dwight's character anymore. Before, I really enjoyed it. Even in season 5, even though his character was trying to find Sherry, I enjoyed him. Episode 3, when he actually got introduced to Sherry, I really enjoyed that episode with just him and Althea. But just him and Sherry at the moment, I don't like Dwight up against Sherry. Also, Sherry is there if you couldn't guess that. But they're all discussing what's going to happen. Of course, a shootout does begin, and this is where we get introduced to John's father. June goes up, she finds this RV, she breaks the window, gets in, she sees a big wall full of all these missing people flyers, and then like end of the beginning photographs, really kind of piecing everything together. And then it's revealed that, okay, this guy here has been hunting this guy down. They go on a little drive because June says there's this location you're actually missing on the map, we'll go there together. And June quickly swerves on the road, takes out her gun, points it at him, and then he sees the JD on the side of the gun. JD, where the episode name comes from, where actually there's a few people the episode's named after. It could be our John Dory, it could be John Dory Sr., John's dad, or also June Dory. So there's a load of people. But he notices the JD, immediately notices the gun is his, and then we get the realization that it's actually John's father. Of course, I knew it going into it. It would have been a cool realization, but it was cool nonetheless. And I like his father. He's nothing like John. He's got some similarities. He's got a small sense of humor. He is a nice guy, but you can see that he does have a dark sense to him. He did go through something quite traumatic back at 40 years ago. But I am actually intrigued to see more of his father. You kind of get a good bit of back and forth between John and June, because his name is also John. You kind of get them kind of talking about, like, John is talking about John Jr. as he was a child, and June's talking about John as he's an adult. And since John was one of my favourite characters on Fear, it was good to see them both talking about him. I really wish John was in the show. I would love him to see John actually get to see his father again after all this time, because we've been hearing John talk about his father since we first got introduced to John. So it would have been cool to actually see him get him to actually meet his father again, but of course he doesn't. Then they realize that the guy Bill, who's actually one of Virginia's, what did they call himself? Oh, I can't even remember what they called himself, but he was one of her soldiers, for lack of a better word. And that we know that he's actually been staying at John's cabin. So June and John are making their way there to try get some answers out of him. Also, he has John's other gun, so they want to go collect that. So they have the two together. On the way there, they decide to stop into that bait shop where John had been going into majority of the week to get a new DVD to watch for himself. We kind of get a bit more background on John, the fact that he used to sit on the porch outside eating ice cream with his dad all the time, the fact that he used to be glued to the TV when he was a kid as well. Just getting all this backstory on John that, again, I would love to see more of the character of John. But then John Sr. says, oh wait, John wrote his initials on the back wall in there, let's see if it's still there. And then he quickly locks June in there. He left John years prior because he felt like he was going through so much that he didn't want to put that on his son. He didn't want his son growing up around a father who was not always there, who kind of, he was there but he wasn't always there. So he didn't want his son growing up like that, so he thought maybe he'd be better off if he wasn't there. And he thought the same thing to June. Since him and June, they're the closest they have to family now. They are family, so he thought, okay, I don't want to do what I did to John to June, so I'm going to leave June here, locks her in a room, and of course he goes off, making his way to the cabin. We also actually get to reveal that Teddy, who we met in episode 11 of this season, the guy with the big beard, the guy who's in charge of the End is the Beginning group, is actually the same guy he framed and then got put away because, of course, he didn't commit the crimes, but he had to frame him to get the evidence on him. And we know that it's him. I was actually speculating it was him because it was a bit close the way they're kind of really setting it up in the start of season 6 and now it's coming around. So I was expecting it's him, but it's actually quite cool that it is him. It really ties John's story into, even though he's not around, he's still very prominent in the story, not only because his wife and his father are there, but it's just he doesn't feel like he's not there. Even though he physically isn't there, you still feel John in the story, which I'm quite glad to be able to do that. But you do get the reveal, of course, that it is him. So John Sr. still has a personal connection to the villain, has a personal connection that he wants to see this all get solved. We also find out that the real reason Sherry is actually out there is not to actually help June or find out whatever they're out there to do. The reason she's out there is to try and find a car and enough gas to get back to Virginia. She realised that going after Virginia and also going after the End of the Beginning group is doing nothing for her. The only thing that's actually going to satisfy her is going back to Virginia and killing Negan. She thinks that's the only thing that is going to make her be able to move on with her life. So that is her plan, is to do that. But also to go back to our main kind of storyline with June and John Dorie Sr. John, because he left June locked up in that cabin, not the cabin, the little shop. We go back, we actually get to see him look throughout the cabin. He kind of, in a way, he kind of freezes a bit. He looks around, he's just remembering because he hasn't been there in 40 odd years. And then he walks outside because he hears a walker. He kills the walker, and then I think the guy's name was Hill, but I could be wrong. He kind of jumps him and he kind of knocks him over, and then of course it comes to a little standoff where Hill's got the gun to John. But John's a fairly capable man. He was a cop for a couple of years. He's been in the apocalypse for a couple of years. So he changes things up. He punches Hill in the face, and then the guns are now the other way around. It kind of leads to a little bit of a fight where the gun then gets knocked out of John's hand. They both fall to the ground. They're fighting a bit. John knocks Bill right in the face. He falls to the ground, and John turns around. He actually sees our John Dorie, his son's grave, which was... He froze. Of course he's going to freeze. He sees his son's grave. It says John Dorie, husband and friend. It was quite a sad thing because we actually haven't seen John's grave. We just saw it getting dug. And then it ends up with John actually getting shot in the stomach. And my major reaction was, oh shit, please don't kill him. I'm actually liking his character. But luckily, you get June, Dwight and Sherry showing up. They kill Hill. And then immediately, because the medical supplies were still on the table there, because that's where June was going to save John, she actually uses those supplies to save John from a gunshot wound. So now John Dorie he's happy, he's safe, he's healthy, he's recovering from the gunshot wound, which honestly I'm really happy we're going to be seeing his character moving forward. But then we kind of get we get his funeral. We get John Dorie, our John Dorie's funeral. We haven't seen it because when he first died, Virginia Ginny, yeah, whatever her name was, she wouldn't let June actually mourned John's death. She was like, okay, let's go quickly, we gotta go now. So we never actually got to see her mourn the death. So we get a funeral scene where June actually reads the letter John gave, and it was a good letter in the fact that it wasn't just kind of aimed at June, it was actually aimed at his father as well. And June's reaction to read the letter was quite sad. Of course, it was going to be sad regardless of her reaction, because she's literally reading a letter her husband read to her before, or wrote to her before he died. So it was quite a sad scene, but the scene as a whole, really enjoyed it. I really loved seeing the three out of four of them together. Then John, or Sherry, realizes that going back and killing Negan is not going to do it. She doesn't know what she wants in life, and her and Dwight decide to kind of start over, do it again. I don't know. It wasn't very clear. Is he going back to Morgan's group and they're going to live there together and go from there, kind of like what happened in the dream sequence we saw last week, where they had kids and they started a life together, or if they're going to go off on their own and just kind of live by themselves. I doubt that's it. I highly doubt. I imagine what we're going to see is them living in the community walls together again. June actually gave them their wedding rings back together, so now they're taking it one step at a time. They're back together, but they're not fully there, husband and wife yet. I imagine that's how it's going to end up. Hopefully, because I kind of want to see Dwight be more than Dwight and Sherry. I want Dwight to be able to stand on his own a bit more, so hopefully that's what we'll be able to see moving forward. But just seeing Dwight as a character, but we do see them go back to Morgan's community. John Dory has now joined that community, so now John Dory makes his way to that community, which we never actually got to see, but now we get to see in a way him joining that community. We see June going in, she's testing, well, doing her tests on Grace to make sure Grace as a whole is just healthy moving forward. And the episode I actually had fun with. It was a bit slow at first, in the fact that we just saw the three of them. The setup, I just thought was slow, but in fairness, it was a setup. But honestly, I had fun with this episode. I think Fear the Walking Dead is just ridiculously good at the moment. I don't know how they're able to do what they had in season 5 and then turn that into fantastic. As a whole, I think I'm actually enjoying Fear the Walking Dead season 6 more than season 10 of The Walking Dead, and hopefully it just goes onwards and upwards. We got 3 episodes. What is this? Episode 13. We've got 3 episodes left. Next week's episode, I am beyond excited for. At the end of this episode, they show the trailer for next week's, and we see Alicia say something like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it's you," and we don't see who she's looking at. The episode is called Mother. I've been speculating that we're going to see Madison ever since she died, ever since season 4 mid-season finale. I've always expected late, but there's always a mystery character. I've always thinking, okay, it's Madison, but all the signs are pointing to Madison's going to show up in episode 14, and I really hope I'm not going to be disappointed, because I really want to see Madison come back. So hopefully we do see Madison. It seems like episode 14 is Teddy trying to convince Alicia to join the cult. I'm really excited to see how this episode is going to play out. 20 of my thoughts on episode 14 next week. Make sure you click the subscribe button so you can go back and hear my thoughts on episode 14 as well as 15 and 16 whenever those episodes drop. And as always, thanks for watching.